Maybe don't know.
This time, next time to build. This 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 time power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power.
What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Chris Hampton.
And I'm Nate Drolet.
And together we form the Lowen Theory. Do you know where that comes from?
Lindsay Lohan.
How did that just pop into your damn head? That's ridiculous. No, it's a Tribe Called Quest album. It's my favorite Tribe Called Quest album, actually. I know some of you out there argue that Midnight Marauders is better, but you're wrong. And I know that's true because I'm saying it on my podcast. There you go. Nate and I are sitting in Denver, Colorado. It's not Colorado, even though that's what I've said my entire life. Colorado. Nate is wearing his yellow Power Company tee, which is now and forever known as the Alex Megos shirt.
Which even Alex Megos knows that now, thanks to Chris.
Yeah, and he thought it was great, and Margot thought it was hilarious. We saw them at the gym last night, along with Megan Martin and Angie Payne, and
Maddie Hong,
and Brooke Rabbitoo, and basically, by walking into Cats, we brought down the mean average of grades climbed just by our presence. It was a pretty strong crew. And immediately I said, "Oh, look, your shirt twin is here," and told Alex that Nate was wearing his Megos shirt. And it went over really well. I'm just sad I didn't get a photo.
Yeah, should have.
Yeah.
Me rosy-cheeked from blushing, him rosy-cheeked because he's just permanently rosy-cheeked.
Yeah. It would have been really cute, but it didn't happen because we were a little bit focused on getting spanked by all the ridiculously strong climbers.
Getting crushed, yes.
Yeah. We're here actually filming some videos. Nate's filming them for La Sportiva. He worked on some blogs, is filming these training videos for Sportiva. And it's really ironic, actually, that Sportiva reached out and then things came to a head and I recorded the public service announcement, "Don't Believe the Hype," last week. Because Sportiva is doing it right. They're asking people who actually know what they're talking about instead of reaching out to one of any number of their incredibly talented athletes saying, "Hey, make these videos and tell us how you train," because they know the information is going to be better and be able to be scalable for their audience. So I appreciate that. So thanks, Sportiva.
Yeah, I'm psyched to work with them.
And that sort of leads us into what we're going to be talking about here. After the PSA, we realized that that's a giant topic. Like, we could talk about how to parse this information and how to decide what to do and what not to do. That could be this entire podcast for the next 5 years. We could just keep talking about it. So we decided to slim that down so it's not quite 5 years. And instead it's going to be 5 days, 5 episodes over the next 5 days on common sense versus common practice. And do you want to tell them where we got that phrase?
Yeah, that was from the Trevor Reagan patron episode that we had. And I was listening to it in my car and I immediately just stopped and texted you and I was like, that's perfect. Like, that phrase just right there. Common sense. What he said was, common sense isn't always common practice.
Yeah. And that's so true. And if you don't remember Trevor, he's from Train Ugly. We did an episode on mindset, fixed versus growth mindset. And
that one's still one of my absolute favorites.
Yeah. And the way that came up is when Trevor and I were talking, he was like, all this stuff is just common sense, right? Like, should we even bother telling people this stuff? Because it's just common sense. And someone said to him, common sense isn't always common practice. And I think that is very evident in climbing. We see it all the damn time. And we're going to talk to you a little about it here. This first episode is quality versus quantity. You know,
One of the classics.
yeah, we all know that we're supposed to go for quality, but what do? We all go for quantity. So let's jump into that. Where do you see it happening? Where do you see it happening often?
Fast food. You know, buckets of fried chicken. Though I will argue that's both.
It's definitely quality, depending on where you go.
Yeah.
Like Popeye's spicy chicken, quality.
Yeah. Oh man, 11 pieces of chicken for $11. I mean, come on.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
So I think one of the most common things and that a lot of people can relate to is things like power endurance workouts, 4x4s. And this really stems off of how we define what is difficulty or what is intensity. Mm-hmm. And that, I think...
Because you're kind of blurring the lines here. Like you're getting close to endurance and then you're still close to power. So where does the quality happen? Where does the quantity happen? Which direction do you go?
Yeah.
It's kind of blurry.
You know, if power endurance or strength endurance is somewhere between strength and pure strength and pure endurance, then if you want to make it harder, which way do you lean? Do you go make it more endurance or do you make it more strength?
Right.
And so, or, you know, obviously there are other ways we can go about it, but the most common thing that I see is people go towards the way of endurance to the point to where they're not even close to power endurance at this point.
Right. Add more.
Yes.
Yeah. 5 more routes of Peter Pan's.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, just a regular, like a 4x4 by itself is actually a lot of times not even power endurance because of how tall gyms are these days.
Right. Totally.
You know, if you're doing 4 12-move rock climbs in a row, like you just did a Madness Cave route.
Yep.
Like 12-move boulders, it's like that is a ton of climbing. And it may not seem like it because, you know, you're like, it's a 4x4. I'm sticking to these measurements. But, you know, if you're doing something more like a 4x4 on like a systems board where you're only doing five moves maybe, then you're really starting to hit the mark a lot better.
Yep.
Because frankly, you can't be strong for 40 and 50 moves. Like it's not possible.
Right. Right. And that, you know, that's something we've talked about quite a bit. Like if you're doing those 40, 50 moves and you're trying really hard, it feels intense. Feels like high intensity. Feels like high quality, high intensity training. And it might be high quality depending on what you're going for. But we've been batting around these phrases trying to figure out how to describe this because it's kind of tough. And we've settled on perceived intensity versus max intensity. And that would be your perceived intensity is how hard are you trying in relation to this exercise. Mm-hmm. Your max intensity is essentially what percentage of your absolute maximum is this.
Yes. So what that would look like if you're a V7 climber, then your maximum intensity would be V7, where your perceived intensity, let's say you're doing 4x4s and your last boulder is only V4, that may still feel like it is 100% for you, but that is your perceived intensity.
Right.
Like it is still only, 7 and 4.
You should have went with V8.
So you're a V8 climber. You're doing 4x4s and your last one's V4. You're really only at 50% of your max intensity. See what I did there?
Math. That's what you did.
So that's a really common one. But so yeah, like, and this is kind of what spurred the quality versus quantity debate or talk.
So many people want to go to quantity.
Yes.
That seems to be the way to make your workout better, make your workout harder. You know, I just hit on that quite a bit in the PSA. You know, it seems like they took these workouts that were normal workouts and they're like, let's make them better. Mm-hmm. And like 10 more Peter Pans, just keep adding volume, quantity. And that does not equal quality.
Yeah. And I mean, to a degree, quantity is better. Like once you hit a certain point, so let's use route climbing in the gym or actually outside as an example. If you're sport climbing outside, if you're only capable of doing 3 pitches a day, I don't care what kind of quality you're doing, you are drastically limiting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You only have so many good days in a season. If you can't go out and do 5, 7, 8 pitches, you're really shortening how many rock climbs you can do in a year just simply because of a lack of volume.
Right.
But once you hit, I think once you start getting over 8, depending on the situation, if you're going out and you're just doing easy on-sites, whatever, once you hit a certain number, if you're oh, I want to hit 15 pitches every single day, that's not better.
Right. And I think what you're alluding to here that I think we need to get to the point of is that you build up a certain amount of quantity in order to be able to reach a high quality. And then you don't need to continue with the quantity part of the equation in most cases.
Yes.
You have to know what you're shooting for, though. I think that's the big important thing here. If you're an alpine climber, if you're going to go be a big wall climber for a little while, quantity might be what you need.
Oh, yeah.
And in that case, you can combine quality and quantity. They can be a similar thing.
If you're doing alpine, I wouldn't even worry about quality. Just throw a pack on. I think you just eat a lot of calories.
Yeah.
Yeah, train for eating.
Wear knickers.
Yes.
But you have to know what you're going for, and you have to be able to define what quality is. If you're a boulderer, just because you did more of your 50% max intensity that session, that doesn't give you a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
Once you can already climb V8, it's not going to help you a ton to do a bunch more V4s as a boulderer.
And if you're just doing it simply for fitness.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think quality versus quantity, what's the first thing that jumps out to you?
Honestly, the first thing I see, and I wrote about this a long time ago in a 5 bad habits of gym climbers post, that I see so many people in the gym base their workout on how many pitches did I do. Oh, I had a great workout tonight. I did 15 pitches, So what? I don't know what that means. Maybe you did 15 pitches of 5.7 and you want to send 5.12 this year. It's not going to happen just because you can do 15 pitches of 5.7, and they want to keep raising that number and keep raising that number. And it's an easy to quantify thing. This is a number I can latch onto and I can make better the next time, make better the next time, make better the next time. You're not really making it better. You're raising the number, but you're not necessarily becoming a better climber because of it.
Mm-hmm. And as someone who has also done 24 hours of horseshoe hell,
yeah,
please tell me, how much stronger did that make you? Because I can tell you right now, I trained really hard for it, and I was a worse rock climber, or fitness wise and strength wise. It did not do me any good to be able to do 100 pitches in a day.
Yeah. You know what I did, interestingly, because I ended up sending my hardest route within a month after Horseshoe Hell. I didn't train for Horseshoe Hell.
Oh.
I just did hard boulders, a bunch of hard boulders. I did 3 training days for Horseshoe Hell where I would come in and I would do volume boulders. And that was really just to toughen my skin up more than anything. So I was able to do my 100 routes. My 105th route, I think, was 12B. So I climbed well through it. I didn't break any records like you did. But then I was able to go on and have a successful sport climbing season after. So,
well, one of us had a good season, and the other one got to beat Alex Honnold, Matt Siegel's record. So just saying, suck it, Siegel.
Yeah, so that's the place I see it the most often, and the most glaring to me is people just counting how much you did. And I think that's a really bad way to go about it. And even if you're the person who goes in and you project a route or you project boulders or whatever it is, I've seen a lot of people get down on themselves because they don't have an easy to quantify method, and these other people do. You know, so they're comparing notes with their friends and they're like, "Oh, I sent 27 new boulders tonight." And you're like, I did 2 moves I hadn't done.
Yeah.
You know, it's not as exciting to be able to say that. But your quality is far higher than that person who's just spinning their wheels and going through the same motions again.
Totally. So, is there a time when you can overdo it on quality?
Yeah, for sure. I think if you are, and depending on your situation, if you are going to say you're our dude Drew Mack, you're going to Spain and you're going to be climbing on, 50-meter routes. If you're super focused on quality, so to speak, and you're only worried about, I want to be able to do the hardest moves. I want to,
I want to leave fresh every single day.
Yeah, I want to
never
be
going to get tired,
close to my max intensity all the time.
You don't get stronger if you leave getting tired.
It's true. That's what everyone says.
Mm-hmm.
Then you do that for 6 weeks. You head over to Spain and you get to bolt number 3 and you're wrecked.
Oh man.
That's how it happens. So at that time, you have to understand that quantity is a necessary part of the equation there. You have to get yourself tired. You have to push into those places that being really focused on quality isn't going to take you.
Mm-hmm. And you can still get a lot of quality out of that.
Totally.
But, and when I wrote that question, that was exactly what I was thinking as well. It can be really easy to oversteer and say, oh, well, I'm just going to do, if I want better endurance, I just need better strength because that's going to make every move easier. So I'm just going to go full bore, pure strength. And suddenly you're not even making it to the 3rd bolt. And that's a problem because in Spain, they belay like 30 feet away from the cliff. Like you're hitting the ground. Like they're probably like eating a tuna sandwich and smoking a cigarette. Hands aren't on the brake end. Like it's bad news.
Oh man. Don't let those people belay you, Drew.
Ooh, sore subject. So are there another thing I want to bring up, and this is kind of where the lines blur a little bit of quality versus quantity, and where I think a lot of people think that they're doing quality and they think they're just like nailing it down. And that's when they go into the gym, they're like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to climb a ton of different problems, a bunch of new problems. I'm going to climb like everything I do is going to be new. And they go in, and man, with how gyms set these days, like it's easy to do. You go in, like
that's a problem, man.
It totally can be. And it's like, I have so much respect for setters for the fact that they can turn over boulders and like keep them good as fast as they can.
Yeah, totally.
But man, unless you are training for 24 hours of horseshoe hell or something, like, God, keeping up, or if you're just mutant strong, like it's really hard to keep up with all the new problems that are going up while keeping quality going.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's a trap that a lot of people fall into, and I'm totally not faulting setters for this. I know that it's the way that the gyms operate. I mean, that's how they make their money. So
people would complain if there wasn't fast turnover.
Yeah, so you should definitely keep doing it. But as a climber who wants to keep progressing, you need to be aware that there's high potential to fall into this quantity trap where you're you go in, there's a new section of the wall set, you flash all the things you can flash, you send the first few things in a bunch of tries that you can, and then you start projecting the things you can project. And
Next week,
there's a new section of the wall set, and
Rinse and
you
repeat.
do the exact same thing over and over and over. And for some reason, 3 years down the road, you're doing the same thing on the same grades, and you can't figure out why you're not progressing.
yeah, maybe a little bit better, maybe a little bit's
Yeah,
changed,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not anything like very significant. Like you have increased at the same rate that everyone else in your gym has.
Right.
And so to me, this is a really big problem. And just simply that most people aren't aware of it, or they think they're doing the right things. So what I recommend is actually distilling down and saying, okay, instead of climbing on 40 different problems tonight, once I warm up, I'm going to pick 2 problems. I'm going to do my perfect repeats, or I'm just going to focus on them. Like, even if I can climb it well, I'm going to do it multiple times and just climb it perfectly and as best as I can, try and really dial it in so that I understand them very well. And then I'll have, my project after that. And then you can also even have circuits as well. So once you've done a project, you come back and you say, okay, can I do this better? And can I repeat it consistently?
Yep.
Because it's one thing to just go in and look at problems as completion points. Like, oh, I did it. Like, I
Right.
may have messed up the beta, but I did it. I got it done. Next.
Right. And this is where quality becomes a little more esoteric. And I think perfect repeats are a really great example of that, because you can't just go through the motions of a perfect repeat, saying, oh, I did 5 laps on this problem. I sent it off 5 times.
Done.
That's not enough. You have to be hyper aware. You have to be concentrated. You have to be focused. And the whole idea there is to really learn how to be aware of the subtleties while you're climbing and be able to faster and faster change those things. And that's what you want to do on the crux of a problem or crux of a route that's 80 feet off the ground. You don't want to have to spend 5 days up there figuring out the subtleties. If you could figure it out in a few attempts on that sequence, then you're far better off. And that's what you're training in there. But by just going through the moves the way you did it the first time, you're not really learning anything. So that's where quality becomes this harder to grasp thing, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's, it can be a bit of a trade-off, and it can be hard to kind of swallow that pill, because you say, well, wouldn't it be better for me to do 20 unique problems rather than just 3 problems that are repeated 5 times each? And I would argue against that. I would say you're better off doing, if you did 3 to 4 problems that you repeated 5 times each and you actually learned something from them, rather than a warm-up should not just be a way to get your body ready.
Right.
Like if you're climbing, every time you pull onto the wall, it's an opportunity to become better or worse. Like there is no stagnant. Like if you're pulling on and you're just slopping your way through saying, oh, okay, I need to get my big muscles warm. I need to get my hands warm. Like I'm kind of pissed I have to warm up. I just want to go get on my project. You're wasting time. Like in a 2-hour session, you may only be climbing for, I don't know, like 10, 12 minutes, something like that. Like on the wall, actually moving.
Yep.
Like not that much time. So if you're pissing away the bulk of that time, which will be spent in your warm up, because you don't really spend a lot of time on the wall when you're actually projecting. If you're pissing away the bulk of that time, just mindlessly going through the motions to like get your body ready, you're wasting so much potential to get better.
Yeah, we all want to, sing the praises of climbing being this cerebral activity, but then we don't want to get our brains involved when we're warming up.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. And so for me, that's a really big one. I think circuiting's great too. Will Anglin posted on the Tension Climbing blog a whole series of circuit workouts, and there's one that we use frequently that we refer to as the 3-strike circuit. So picking 5 very hard boulders, 3 goes each, and man, trying hard is a skill. Like,
Yeah.
going up to a really hard boulder, imagining yourself doing it, running it through your head, and pulling on and executing, that is a skill. Like it's not just simply muscle memory and strength and are your fingers, strong enough today. It is, do you know how to perform?
Yeah, and if you can over time build that skill up and, get better at flipping that switch when it's time to flip that switch, that's really high quality work that's happening. It's not just going through the motions again.
Yeah, it's not just, I sent that project once. I really don't want to ever get back on it because that was luck.
Yeah,
I'm just going to get on something else.
Yeah. Do you see this quality versus quantity thing happening outside as well? Like, do you see people getting into one trap or another?
Oh, totally. Yeah, and I think it can go both ways. Yeah, I mean, for a lot of people just like going out and climbing a ton of volume, like, which I can get, and it can be a ton of fun. But if you want to progress, like, going out and you can go out and do 500 new rock climbs at an area, but if they're all like things so easy you could do them in your tennis shoes, like, you're probably getting worse and you're just getting jug rash.
Yeah, it doesn't really get you anywhere. It definitely doesn't make you an accomplished climber.
No, definitely not.
And here's a question for you. One of the things I see that often bothers me is, again, I'm back to this counting pitches things, but I hear people whenever I say, what do your days look like outside? And they can tell me, I get 8 pitches in, or I get 10 pitches in. Mm-hmm. I always try to get 10 pitches in. And I'm like, why?
I was once told by a person that if you climbed 10 pitches every day, didn't matter the grade, didn't matter if they were new, that you would keep getting better.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
I screwed up a long time ago then. But I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't know. I can't possibly predict that I'm going to be able to do 10 pitches the next season when I'm out there. If I'm projecting and I'm trying something that's really, really hard for me, there's no way I'm going to climb 10 pitches that day. Mm-hmm. Especially if I've got something like I can warm up on the Woody at home and I don't have to do a bunch of warm-ups that day out at the crag. I might get 3 pitches in and be a mess.
Yeah, but it'll still be high quality.
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the funny thing too is 10 is, the reason we go to 10 is because it's a nice round,
right,
pretty number.
Yeah.
So there is no science behind you should do 10 pitches or you should be able to do 10 pitches. It's just a good number. Like,
there's not even really any rationale behind it.
No. Who knows if your partner is trying something new, God forbid you're somewhere like Rifle where they're like, hey, I'm going to go project shopping today. Like, good luck getting 10 pitches in. You're going to be on belay for like 4 hours that day.
Yeah. Yeah. So I see about the same mistakes outside as I do inside when it comes to quality versus quantity.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to add. So not everyone is always psyched on perfect repeats. If it's not your thing, it's not your thing. I personally think they're amazing. But one thing I like to recommend to people is if they go into the gym and let's say there is a new set and you want to go through and you do want to flash all the boulders, which is cool, go do it. Anytime you hit a spot where, let's say you flash it, you come down. If you hit a spot to where you're like, I could do that better, just do that one move. Maybe do that 2-3 move sequence. Like, you don't need to repeat the entire 15 move problem or whatever, but just take that little spot and climb it well. Climb it 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And then when you're done and you realize, okay, this is what I should have done, add one extra step, take a step back and look at it and say, how could I have read this the first time? When I look at this, like, why did I think the thing that I thought? Did I even bother reading it or did I just pull on the start holds and start climbing? But it's like, if you did read it and you read it incorrectly, like, what needs to change in your way that you view problems, to fix this? But yeah, and that's something that, that won't take you more than 3 or 4 minutes. And if you can prevent from making an error twice, good news, you're going to be an expert in like 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, most errors that we make are thematic. Like, they repeat. We keep making the same mistakes. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have talked about this in the past. But yeah, so like the best thing you can do to get better faster is stop making the same mistakes.
Yeah, and I may have mentioned this on the podcast before. I know I've talked about it in workshops. I was climbing a rifle with BJ Tilden, who climbs 14 plus. His first pitch of the day was a 5'11" warm up. And when I was lowering him down from the warm up, he said, "Hold me here a second." And I was like, initially, I'm like, why? What the hell for? You could climb this 5'11" via 20 different sequences. It's not going to matter.
One of which with oven mitts on.
But he knew that one little section right there wasn't the best way to do it. The rhythm was off or whatever it was, and he wanted to make it better so that when he warmed up on the next time, it would feel better to him and get him into a better place. Mm-hmm. And that's a really great example of just taking that extra minute to make yourself a little bit better. To recognize something was off. You just want to make yourself better. And it only took, what was it, 15 seconds or something for him to do that sequence again, and then he's on the ground.
And he learned something from it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, too, and this is, to me, a very crucial idea that it's easy to miss out on when looking at kind of quality versus quantity. And this is even more towards quantity being the higher intensity of V grades, for instance. So if you look at most problems or even routes that are hard for you, you're not doing 1 rep max intensity movements.
Right.
They happen, but they're rare. They're very rare. Even limit boulder style climbs, while they have a lot to teach you, they're more rare out in the wild. Yep. It's rare that you're going to get on, if 13A is your project level, it's rare that you're going to get on it and it's going to be a 1 move V8 in the middle of it.
Right.
What is much more likely is you're going to have to do 3, maybe 4 V3s on it, and you're going to have to do them maybe a little pumped.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, yes, getting stronger is better for that, but if you can learn how to climb V3 beautifully and well and efficiently, that's going to be what's going to apply to your sport climbing more so. Learning how to take your 70 and 80% max intensity and being able to make that as smooth and as dialed in as possible.
Right. Yeah, you hear all the time, you don't even look pumped, or why'd he fall? He didn't even look tired, It's not because they weren't tired or they weren't trying hard. It was because they've gotten really good at keeping their technique together, keeping their head game together, standing on their feet when they need to, and moving smoothly when everything in their head is falling apart. They can feel that it's all going downhill, but keeping all those things together means they're going to stay on the wall longer. Mm-hmm. And so often you can't see it from the ground at all. You see it all the time. People saying, "Oh my God, I was so pumped," and everybody else is like, "You didn't look pumped at all." That's a really good way to tell that it's a good rock climber, I think.
Totally. Yeah. And this applies to boulders as well. If you did 4 2-move V6s back to back, that's roughly V10. Mm-hmm. It won't have a single V10 move on it.
Right.
But it's still hard. That's going to be 8 moves that are difficult to string together. So
Right.
if you can learn how to climb V6 very, very well, 2-move V6s, very well, and you can learn how to just own them and climb them perfectly instead of just making it through. When you do get on these problems or even if it's just there's an intro V6 to a hard move, if you can climb that opening even better, perfect. That's going to help you so much more. And it's going to mean you don't need to be as powerful for that one move at the end. Yes, more power is helpful. It's good. But there's a time to look at quality as well.
Yeah. And I really want to highlight the fact that getting smooth on a V6 doesn't necessarily mean just go into the gym and do as many V6s as you can. It means be very intentional, be very aware, try to make each attempt really high quality instead of just jump on as many and scrap your way to the top as you can.
And if you think you can do something better, take the time and do it better.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in the gym, there's no, all those problems are going to disappear in a month. Will never exist again. Like, it doesn't matter if you send them, really. Like, it doesn't matter if you go do more V6s or whatever. Like, what, in the end of the day, all that matters is, did you get better?
Yeah. If you're writing a training plan, let's say for the people out there who are writing training plans for themselves, how do they make sure that it's high quality and not just focused on more? You know, what steps can they take early on in that process to ensure that it's not just being quantity?
I think step one is looking at the goal.
Good answer.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, it's almost cliche at this point, but, you know, keep the goal. And that's where so many people fall short. But what is your goal? What do you need to be there? Like, what are the steps? If your goal is to go out and you're going to spend a 3-day weekend in Waco Tanks and try and climb V10, you need to be able to climb 3 days on.
Yep.
You need to understand how you can moderate your intensity level for 3 days on, because you can't go hard for 3 straight days. Like,
right.
If you think you can, that's probably not actually like that hard.
Right. Yeah, a good way to look at that is look at an ultramarathon runner. They're going hard for a long time, but I guarantee you not one 100-yard portion of that ultramarathon is at their all-out sprint.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Or even all-out jog.
Yeah, totally. So a 3-day weekend in Waco, if those are your only days, you need to understand that some of that time is going to be spent walking, jogging, and understand when to turn it up to a sprint.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. So being able to know that and saying, okay, like, this is my base amount of quantity that I need. Like, maybe you're not always going 3 on, 1 off, but you need to be able to withstand that much volume. Right. And so you say, okay, this is my base. This is what I need. And you can even break it down more from there. Like,
and you need to know what your goal in Waco is.
Yeah.
Is your goal to go climb as many classic V7s as possible?
Which would be a ton of fun.
It would be. Or
is it to try one boulder?
Do you just want to do one boulder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if it's one boulder, like, that's much more manageable. And then you say, well, okay, like, how long is this boulder? Like, how many quality can I increase the number of quality goes that I give in a day? Because if I only have 3 days, I'm not allowed to rest, and then I'm gone. Like, it doesn't matter how strong I am if I can only give 2 good red point burns in a single day, and then I'm just toast.
Yep.
Unless I'm flashing that thing, like, I'm going to be in trouble.
Right.
Like, if it's at your true project level, it's like, okay, can we increase how many good efforts I can give in a day? Like, maybe you want to worry about things like your skin or something like that. Like, what would you say for this question?
I would say that you gave a much better answer than I expected. So
I try to buy you time.
So I don't know that I would add much to that. I think that takes care of a lot of the issues. If you're really looking deeply into what the goal is and how to prepare for it, then you're more than likely hitting the quality elements that you need. Mm-hmm. I would add to that, however, that once you get there, once you're standing in front of your goal, don't fall into that quantity trap. I see what I mean by that is if your project is to do, or if your goal in your 3-day weekend in Waco is to do one route, and the first time you try that boulder, it feels really hard, don't automatically bail out to the
I'm going to go do a bunch of 6s.
I'm going to go do a bunch of 6s and 7s, right?
Yeah.
Because we have this need to feel accomplished, you know, and for some reason, quantity gives us that feeling of accomplishment.
Totally.
Like, I did so much while I was in Waco, but then you go home and you're alone and you're like, I didn't do the thing I wanted to do.
Yeah.
You know? So I would definitely strongly caution against that trap and say, keep the quality going all the way through the goal. You know, don't stop with the training plan.
Yeah. And so how about this? What if you don't have a goal? What if your simple goal is, I just want to get better. These next 3 months, I'm going to go into the gym and I just want to be a better climber.
I think then you need to make a goal. I think you need to come up with a goal that fits what you want, something tangible that fits that goal you have of becoming a better climber. What does that look like? Does that mean I want to do 5 13As of 5 different styles? Will that equate somehow to me becoming a better climber? It's going to demand a lot of me. I'm going to have to be good at slab climbing. I'm going to have to be good at steep climbing and long climbing and short bouldery climbs and off width, for God's sake.
No.
So I think that having that tangible goal, I think, is so important, that even if your goal is something big and broad, like I just want to become better, you need to find a tangible goal that you can attach to it and push toward.
Totally. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. And then as far as just inside, like climbing inside, if you're doing stuff and you're like, am I just doing things to do things? I can't tell. What I would recommend is do what feels hard. Like if climbing extended feels hard for you, climb extended a bunch. If climbing bunchy feels hard for you, and I don't give a shit how tall you are.
I think uncomfortable might even be a better word than hard.
Yeah, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I was ranting. As I was saying, I don't care how tall you are. Like, tall people like to complain how they can't climb bunched, but the thing is, you have no excuse. Have you ever climbed with someone who's tall and flexible?
Oh yeah, man.
They're fucking cheaters, man. Like, you realize that they can keep their feet low, they can sag out further from the wall because they're taller, and they're so flexible they can get their foot even higher than you because they've got longer legs. Like, I used to climb with a guy who is an incredible climber, like sport climber, boulder, well-rounded, about 6'2", and just very flexible with strong legs.
Yeah.
And man, there was nothing he couldn't do.
Well, I've climbed with a lot of tall guys who don't use their height.
Oh, I mean, that's
they can't climb stretched out.
Yeah, which is hilarious. Like I've climbed with a guy who's 6'5", who I could match him span for span.
Yep, totally.
I mean, and I am a giant, but not quite 6'5".
You're a small giant.
Yes, in my heart. But so whatever's difficult for you, like that small rant was to simply say that find what's uncomfortable. Like, don't make an excuse for why it's uncomfortable. If you are a very short person and you say, climbing span is really hard for me because I'm short, it's like, well, suck it up, buttercup. Like,
yeah,
it's always going to be difficult for you, and it's going to be even harder if you never focus on it.
Yep.
So take the time, and whatever challenges you, whatever makes you uncomfortable, spend a little extra time in that, and that's how you can guarantee that you'll find quality.
Yeah. Yep. And I think you can do that outside too. I think if you're one of those people who loves to go outside and do a million rock climbs and you find yourself not getting better, then get uncomfortable and go check out some hard rock climbs. Maybe put some of your season into projecting. I think it makes you more well-rounded. I think it makes you a better rock climber to understand all of those things. And I'm not going to allow myself to rant on this because
I think this feels like a segue.
Yeah. This is going to be topic of number 2, which is tomorrow for all you guys. Until then, you can find us on the Instagrams and on the Facebooks, and you can find us at our website, which is powercompanyclimbing.com. If you have not, for God's sakes, if you have not listened to the public service announcement, Don't Believe the Hype, you should go do that now. And then you can listen to Pyramids versus Towers tomorrow. And you can share it all over the internets, including on your Twitter machine, which is where we are not, because we don't tweet. We scream like eagles.
This time, it's time to finish.